Hello, good afternoon, welcome. Just give it a couple seconds to let people filter in. All right, let's get started. Welcome to the live debate. This is S&P's 2023 Market Outlook. With me today, we have the North America leadership team, so I'll just go around the room, quick introductions. We have Neil McLean, VP of our sales. We have Roger Elwell, VP of Partner Alliances for North America. We have Dr. Steele Arbini, he is our Chief Technology Officer. Tom Rosinski, our President and Managing Director in North America, and Darren Shaw, our VP of Marketing. With that, Darren, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Miranda. Thank you, Tom, Dr. Arbini, Roger, and Neil for being on this call. And thank you to all of you who are taking time out of your lunch to listen to what we have to say. This is the first of many webinars we're going to hold this year, and we thought we'd start off with what does 2023 look like in our eyes. We may all share the same ideas, we may not. So with that, let me start with my friend Neil. Start to, right? So Neil, you're obviously, as a VP of sales, you're on the front line interacting with customers. What's January already telling you about what 2023 is going to look like? And is it the same or is it different than 2022?
Awesome. Thank you, Darren. Good afternoon. And as you said, I'm on the front line having so many conversations with customers and partners. I actually am losing my voice, so bear with me, everybody. But no, it's going to be an exciting 2023 already. We're seeing that, in 2022, from an M&A activity perspective, there was a significant dip than 2021. So as geopolitical recession fears, interest rate impacts are kind of flowing through the market, customers are coming to us now in more of a planning, prepping, scoping mode for their M&A activities to help with any data migration initiatives as it relates to those business-driven events. So that's something that I think we saw a significant, like we said, dip last year. This year could be, some change, especially in the second half of 2023. And then on the S4 landscape, really interesting to see that, those early adopter projects from an S4 migration perspective, those have happened. Those have been successful. Now customers are feeling more and more confident that they have to really get going in terms of either starting projects or really determining if there's a need to do a stepping stone approach to get to S4 from their current CC landscape. So that's some two big themes, that we're talking to customers a lot about here in January. And yeah, so I'd love to hear any debate or any pushback from my panelists.
Everyone agree with what Neil said? Sound pretty good to me.
Let me jump in. I'm not sure if I'll disagree with you, Neil, but I'll at least say we're seeing, everyone talks about potential recession this year. They're talking throughout the year. Some people debate it and say it's first half of the year. Some say second half. Now people are starting to say, well, it could be 2024. The big thing we saw in fourth quarter, we were working on 11 different S4 migration projects in Q4. We closed 5 of them. So companies are now pushing more towards S4, which is something they haven't been doing, according to Gartner and other analysts, until just in Q4. And we're seeing it again, it's spilt over into Q1. So I would tell you, even when companies go through a downturn in the economy, it does not slow down S4 migrations. It actually will speed it up. This happened back between 2004 and 10. Anytime there was a blip in the economy, people would go and do their SAP implementations. They had more people to staff on a project, etc. So all of a sudden it becomes a higher priority. So I think we're starting to see that. We're just in the early stages.
Fair enough. Thanks for that. Hey, Steele, let me go to you next. I mean, you're thinking 5 steps ahead, not only for our clients, but also where SNP needs to go. And you pick up CIO magazine or you read online. I don't know if they even print the magazine anymore, but you see composable ERP and data fabrics and all the usual trends. What are you seeing for technology trends for 2023 that are relevant to what we do?
Sure. Thanks for that intro, Darren. And, just briefly to circle back around what some of my colleagues said, certainly both the M&A and the S4 aspects of the business seem to be picking up. If you think about Q4 last year and Q3, there was a lot of doom and gloom out there. And now, we see maybe inflation's been coming in, maybe the labor market is still resilient, economy's holding its own, maybe some of that doom and gloom is not going to really happen. So now people that have been sitting on so-called dry powder for a while are ready to start utilizing it. So I definitely see those more traditional areas of data migration, data transformation, and modernization becoming increasingly active in 23. But the longer term view, certainly you mentioned data fabrics, data intelligence. This is a key aspect of where a lot of organizations are going. One of the key topics they're all focused on is data literacy. Why? Because, everybody wants access to those analytics. Everybody wants to get their advanced reporting and maybe, dare I say it, even move into the AI space and actually operationalize some of that AI that we've been hearing about over and over in the news. Very difficult to do with unharmonized systems, data in multiple SAP systems, custom data that's all over the place, not in a standard format. Those models are pretty much geared towards working with numbers, right? So you got to get your data to look like a bunch of numbers so that the models can use it. And, so prepping for that, getting the insight into your data, that data literacy to know what you have, how to standardize it, get to a common platform, then enable some of that future stuff like AI, machine learning, beyond some of the predefined things that come in the system is certainly an area of much growth where a lot of people are preparing for right now.
Yeah, Steele, that's a good point. You talk about just building that foundation, right? And putting complex solutions on top of bad data, disparate, highly customized systems is kind of a recipe for failure. For example, and I'll throw this out there, right? I read some articles in the past couple of weeks, although it came out at the end of 2022, that SAP and IBM and Google are all retiring their IoT platforms, and they all have, they put a positive spin on that, but in my mind, it seemed like, trying to jump to complex solutions like IoT without addressing the foundation because people just weren't ready for IoT yet. Am I off base on that, Roger, Steele, any of you guys?
Well, on the IoT side, if you think about, the 4 V's of volume and velocity, you certainly had a lot of that out of IoT, right? It generated a lot of data with a lot of velocity. I'm not sure you had the 3rd V there of value, right? You had a lot of data points, but that really didn't tell you a lot of very interesting stuff. Like, so then what are you going to do with it, right? The old garbage in, garbage out. If I have data that's not very valuable, not very predictive, I can't expect to get earth-shattering predictions out of it because it's not there.
Yep, fair enough. Hey, Tom, this one's for you. And you won't be surprised by this, right? But Gartner put out a recent executive survey, and these executives that they talked to, 59 of them said that their digital projects have taken way too long to complete. and then not only complete, but also, they take too long to realize value after the fact. I know that from a timing perspective, I know that unfortunately our colleague Tim is not with us. From a delivery standpoint, we were pushed to the max to exceed the deadlines that were already set for us contractually when we were going to deliver. So Tom, I assume there won't be any change in that as well. It's just going to be all about speed, speed, speed.
Yeah, and Darren, what we're seeing in the market is most companies, I talked to the S4 migrations before, but most companies, I'd say mid-size and smaller, they have to get these projects done in less than 12 months. So they're not doing lots of transformation, they're doing a little bit. So it's very targeted, and they're trying to do this very quickly. So anywhere from 8 to 12 months, we're getting pushed all the time to go faster. And then from the larger the companies with large volumes of data, they're really just doing 12 to 18 months. So it's not much different, and it's a lot more, it's riskier with a lot more data, but they're taking advantage and really trying to push the envelope with Bluefield. So we're seeing more and more of that because the companies who've already spent a lot of time transforming and they've spent a lot of money, they still want to get to S4, but they don't want to spend 100 million, 300 million, like some of the initial implementations cost. For the smaller companies, it could be 50 million, 60 million. They don't want to spend this. So what's happening is they want to compress the time frames, but they still want to be selective on the data they choose, and they want to do this very quickly. So I think that trend's going to continue.
Yeah, and I think there's still never been, particularly with the scars that many CIOs have on their backs from the SAP projects that they went through. Even just doing, an upgrade was a nightmare, right? And there's a reason why, certain industries that have grown by acquisition, everyone's running SAP. Now you've got a company that's running 5, 6, 7 disparate systems. They were scared to death of doing any kind of harmonization and cleanup because they were afraid it was all just going to fall on the floor. But luckily, people like us are around to make that kind of a non-issue going forward. So, all right.
Yeah, and there's one thing to add.
Yeah.
What I've seen change in just the last, let's say, 18 months, companies who were at 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, 3, they were the first ones wanting to do more of a Bluefield selective data transformation kind of approach. Now we're starting to see the companies north of 10, 15, 20, 30 terabytes. They're now looking at this. So that is where the big number of accounts are at this point, and I think that's the trend we're seeing. And speed's still important, keeping the costs low, et cetera, and mitigating risk.
Right on. Hey, Roger, I want to go to you next because this was a survey put out by one of our partners, Accenture. And I know that you focus your hands-on with them. So Accenture came out actually with a great article about race to the cloud, and they said that 7 in 10 companies considered their cloud journeys fairly incomplete because one of the things that they did was they more focused on low-hanging fruit, right? Applications that they could easily move to the cloud and not shut down production, right? It was kind of safe, right? Which may explain why we haven't seen this massive stampede of SAP systems to the cloud. But you think now that picking off this low-hanging fruit, 2023, we actually might see the big important systems finally moving, or still more the low-hanging fruit this year? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Darren, I think Yeah, Darren, I think you're right. We're seeing that too. You know, I deal with partners, and my group deals with partners day in, day out. They're bringing us, opportunities or, approaches or requests from the customers that, I think somebody mentioned it before. They want to consolidate. They want to lower their costs. We're getting involved in TCO types of assessments, and also in all the deals that, involve S4. It just seems that, cloud is in the equation, all the time. So yeah, there's definitely, particularly for larger enterprises, if you take like a, maybe a consumer, like a consumer goods business, whatever, they're real concerned about, downtime, and moving to the cloud is a big issue, some of these customers that we're seeing, have these huge databases. I think Tom mentioned it before, huge databases. And it's not just a question of, getting to the cloud, but getting to the cloud without causing a lot of pain. These projects can be big. We try to, really accelerate them, and, with the quality processes that we are able to, have in an automated way, we can really streamline those projects. But we're seeing, as I said, these larger enterprises really focusing more on cloud because they need to go there. It's a lower cost approach. There's so many technologies out there, and integration technologies too, with analytics platforms that they need to take advantage of. So it just makes the journey so much simpler. If you can get there and then focus on the other things that are really going to bring you value.
Yeah. Neil, are you hearing that same thing directly as Rogers said that we're kind of gaining for our partners? I mean, are clients having broader thoughts, like it's not necessarily S4 or the cloud, but hey, how can we do both, or are you still seeing somewhat, linear? Let's do one thing now and then do another thing next.
Yeah, I think customers are trying to get the most value in a single move. So they're looking to combine different initiatives, different transformations into a single step. So cloud is a great one that you just mentioned, and Roger was talking about. How do we combine, say, an S4 move with cloud? And also talking to customers about different types of migrations, not just full system lift and shift, getting the full workload into, say, a cloud solution, but how do we selectively do real-time simulations for a subset of the data, again, using our broad range of solutions to give folks flexibility of what they move to the cloud and in what fashion and with what frequency. So it's a flexible approach. And yet we're seeing a lot of that pickup where customers want to pick and choose what SAP data they actually move to the cloud.
Right on. Hey, so I want to throw this out there too, because there, for those who are listening and aren't aware, SNP acquired Datavard back in late 2021, and we spent a lot of time carefully thinking about how to integrate those solutions into our portfolio to tell kind of the broader story, because we all know in the past was, we talked about being able to move selective data. And then they asked me a question, okay, well, what do we do with the rest of our stuff? And our answer was, whatever you want, which is not a particularly inspiring message, right? But now we have an answer. Tom, talk about, just for example, right? Talk about SNP Glue. And I know that, that's something that's been popping up. We've had some very interesting discussions with the hyperscalers and with companies like, Snowflake. Tom, what do you see from a data integration standpoint? Tools like Glue going to be important for companies to think about?
Yeah, what we're seeing a lot of, it's more from a data analytics standpoint. So companies are looking at what do they need to do to build, more performance-based, high, their data, their whole data environment. They're looking at this to say, how can I get the data and get access to it with the best kind of reporting, et cetera. And so in some cases, they're bypassing SAP BW. Not always, but sometimes. Sometimes they do both. They use BW for one thing, but they're using Glue to actually push that data to Snowflake and Google so they can do other kinds of queries, other kinds of reporting, and actually get into this. And sometimes they build other applications around that. So it is another trend that's happening. Some of these are actually going before someone does an S4 migration. Some are actually discussing having it as part of an S4 migration. So we're seeing both sides of this. So it's an interesting piece that we've been selling an awful lot of those in the last few months, and but it's a pretty hot trend right now.
All right. Yep, we still got a little bit more time. Hey, Steele, let me come back to you. It's funny. I was reading various analysts' predictions for 2023 for SAP, and not surprisingly, you had earnings per share numbers and stock prices that were all over the place, right? So no one seemed to agree on SAP's trajectory. Just curious as to what your thoughts are. What do you think SAP absolutely has to get right in 2023 so that they're on the upside of those numbers and not on the downside?
Well, I believe, their control in the back office will remain there, right? There are so many, manufacturing heavy, complicated manufacturing type operations, for example, that are so intertwined with SAP that is, what they have to, where they're going to stay. But what they really have to figure out is the stuff around that. You hear a lot about SAP's BTP, the business technology platform. They have something called the AI Core, which is their AI as a service platform, and all those offerings beyond just core manufacturing heavy type ERP. They really need to start winning in those areas because most of those people are, if they haven't already, are very heavily contemplating moving to the big hyperscalers because they know there's a lot of that services already waiting for them there that they could take use of on day one, not something that's up and coming. So if they want to retain those customers and get that recurring revenue of having them in the cloud, in their own cloud, then I really think this cloud ecosystem built on BTP, they really need to get right to keep those customers there, because a lot of that genie has already fled the bottle, and to keep the rest of it from coming, they're going to need to get that part right.
Fair enough. And hey, and Roger, along the same lines, right? I mean, so where SAP's fate goes, so goes, well, our own, right? Because we support SAP, but also
Sure.
our implementation partners, right? So, Roger, what do you think? What do you think the GSIs and regional SIs have to get right in 2023?
Well, there's a big focus from them on their analytics practices, and the analytics feed into or integrate with the AI areas that Steele was just talking about. There's a lot of stuff happening that over the next few years, you have to be ready for. One of the big hyperscalers is talking about using AI to actually have cameras inside stores to take inventory shots and relay that back to the ERP system and count the inventory in real time. I mean, you could do that through POS systems too, but it's really, there's so much that is happening in that area that you have to have this whole foundation in place. It's all built upon a really good, robust ERP system that's integrated with all these, really good technical, analytic platforms, and and integrated with AI. So, yeah, that's really, as Steele said, that's what they have to get right, and that's where the industry is going. And I can see it through our partners, our big partners, because that's where the focus, a lot of focus is on. We're getting a lot of interest from them in our, for example, our integration products, which Tom just mentioned, Glue. And yeah, for sure.
Okay. We got about 4 minutes
Hey,
left.
Dan, we actually have a couple questions from
Oh, we do. Oh, good. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so first question, would love to hear about what you're seeing with large enterprises, and are you lining up with specific GSIs to push the narrative? By the way, I'm hearing that the pipeline for selective data transfer is increasing quite a bit.
Who wants to take that? Roger, you want to take that from a GSI perspective, since that was thrown in there?
Yeah, actually, what was the last part of it after GSI? I didn't hear every word. Could you just repeat that last part?
The last bit is just the selective data transfer is increasing quite a bit, but he would like to understand more about what we're seeing
Yeah,
from
okay.
large enterprises, and are we lining up with specific GSIs?
Yeah. Yeah, early in the call, Tom mentioned that, there's a, propensity towards, not doing greenfield. Greenfield can be very, very, it is very expensive. There are reasons to do greenfield, but what we're finding though is, the larger enterprises with huge databases have a lot going on in terms of analytics. They really need to, focus on, getting the data migration right. They've invested a lot over the years. There's no reason to throw it all away. And so, we're seeing now there's kind of a little bit of a, not a U-turn, but definitely a different, turn of events as compared to 3 years ago, where the focus was really on reinstalling everything from scratch. So there's definitely a, turn in the market, and the GSIs are really focused on moving what's in place and getting it right into the into S4, as opposed to just redoing everything from scratch. No question about it.
And I could jump in on the selective migration part. I do see that trending up, as you said, because if you think about it, a lot of the simplistic type moves, a lot of that's been done already. They were able to do, as Roger said, a clean install, or it was just a brownfield type upgrade. And the people that were more reluctant to move were the ones that had more of a complex landscape, had more technical debt, and they needed something selective like that to pick and choose what they wanted to move, maybe merge to a single system, to then enable all that stuff Neil and Roger have been talking about, from composable ERP to the advanced analytics and so on. You don't really get the benefit of that if it's in 5 separate systems. So the need for selective migration goes up as the market gets more and more specialized. As the needs get more and more specialized, the need for selective migration is only going to go up.
Yeah, the
And
other
Steele,
thing I would
perhaps you
add to
can we can
that,
build
what
off this.
Steele
This
and
is
Roger said.
Live TV.
I was only going to say, there's a little delay here, so you can tell. I was just going to add, we are working with all of the major SIs. So every one of them, we have a partnership with them. We're not dedicated to only one integrator. We are working with, probably last year, we probably had projects, at least I'd say 12 or 13 different SIs. So we're doing projects with everyone.
And I think you said there's one more question. I know we're out of time, but I would like to get to that second one if possible. We can go maybe a couple minutes over.
Yep. Last question. How is SNP's Bluefield different from SAP's selective data transition?
Who wants to take that? Neil,
Well,
how about
I can
you?
tell you that one of the main differences is that the SNP approach is end-to-end enabled by software. We start with early software-based analysis and discovery, and that simulation of what Neil was talking about earlier. When you identify a problem in your data transformation, it costs you 10 times more to fix it in each subsequent phase of the project, because you have to back out of everything you've done already. And the more you've done, if you've already loaded the data, maybe already done some testing, that all needs to be redone. So the benefit of that end-to-end process enabled through software really allows you to do that simulation and understand early and fix those problems when it may just be a few minutes of impact, as opposed to hundreds and maybe even thousands of man days and derail your go live and so on. In addition to that, we also add the opportunity to do other types of transformation along with the S4 project, like selective data, like archiving, like using our glue and outboard technologies and Fridge to give you nearline and offline data storage to selectively migrate the data that's left so you can retire the old systems and then do any harmonization and transformation along with that process, let's say to get to a standard chart of accounts or a standard process, or move you to more of a standard, so that, you know, if you look at SAP's projections, they're predicting a 5-year retirement cycle for S/4HANA, which means that every 5 years, a 5-year-old version will be retired, which means you're basically in a never-ending upgrade cycle. So the more you can fit to standard is the easier that never-ending cycle is going to be. And with the SNP approach, because we can leverage the transformation along with the modernization, along with the data archiving, along with the transformation to standard, we get you to that point where you're much better set up for the future and that never-ending cycle of upgrade. And then to take on some of the topics like, you know, Tom and Neil and Roger were talking about, like the advanced analytics and the best of breed ERP, connecting to all those third-party things that are available for you in the cloud. The transformation to get there is really an enabling technology to take advantage of all of that, and that's what we offer with the SNP approach that no one else can.
Right on. I think that's it, right? We're out of time. Miranda, you want to take us out?
Yes, that is it from our side. Yeah, we'd like to thank the audience for taking time out of your busy schedules to hang out with us for 30 minutes. We'll be sending the link to the recording, and thanks for bearing with us with the little internet delay. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
See you at the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.